So I am starting to catch up with the editing and reflections. We have played one session beyond. We've played 3 sessions, and so these are the reflections on session 2. There are a couple of things I will note for people who are interested in game mastering Champions now. First, you will note that I'm fairly generous with offering tactics, and you have to learn. I mean, there's maneuvers and stuff in this game, and it's hard to learn just by looking at a list in a book. When you're in the thick of it, that's when you're going to learn like what a move through is, and you're going to learn about endurance and stuff like that. Terminology, right? To burn out is one thing for a power. To push is another. To run out of endurance. I mean, it's fine if you see them in a list or see the words used, but in the thick of things is when you actually learn which is which. So being a little, careful about that and to ask for clarifications and to make suggestions is part of that. Now, the hard thing about doing that as a game master is learning when to stop, because you really don't want to be front loading or basically puppeteering what people do with their characters. And if you're not careful, you'll miss the point where they have learned enough to basically start taking responsibility for it themselves, and they'll get used to you saying, well, you could do this. And anyway, we're definitely not in danger of that here, but in the long term, if you are teaching the game to people while you play it, you may find yourself in that trap. So beware. You got to let go after a little bit of sessions of saying, well, you could do this and you might do that, or if you did this. So with all that in mind, you can look at the rather complex little fight. A few very interesting things about the importance of timing and options. One thing you should know is that when Hafsmanin rolled and failed to hit exactly the place where the La Flecha Dorada was standing, that even though I had it hit the building and crumble the spot beneath them, the hitting the building and damaging it, yes, that's mechanics. Actually having it be that spot beneath them, as I mentioned, was not a matter of actually hitting their hex. They did not, Hafsmanin did not succeed in doing that. So La Flecha Dorada did not, topple down with the collapsing roof because of that. So the crumbling part of that spot was just colorful. La Flecha Dorada had plenty of base to jump away from there as she planned. And so that's just letting you know, that what you saw was indeed a miss. And so La Flecha Dorada had no change in their options, or anything of that kind. Now, a couple of interesting points about the contingencies of rolls. First of all, God, that was a crap roll for damage, or for the effect of the entangle and the flash upon Hafsmanin, who with a better roll could easily have been blinded and disoriented and in terrible pain for more phases after that. As it was, only losing, one phase of effectiveness. And even that, he managed to do something. He destroyed some real estate. And so the one thing was it didn't harm him and disorient him as much as that attack could easily have done. And La Flecha Dorada has to use stealth in order to get that shot off. So getting into the bushes, being located by Cosmonaut, was not so great for La Flecha Dorada, but she did get a clear shot at him from concealment there, and again, with a crap roll, 17 on 3d6. I mean, only a 17 or 18 would have missed. I mean, he was up there completely like a sitting duck. And wham, the dice betrayed La Flecha Dorada, and a good damage roll on Cosmonaut at that point would have been absolutely devastating, because Cosmonaut's main effect right there was being able to act as a beacon to direct the charge of Havsmanin, and without that particular miss, La Flecha Dorada may actually have been able to best them, one character against two, in an, if not an optimal environment. Water would have been optimal, but a really good, a really good situation. Very effective character got really betrayed by those two roles, and even so, was able to stay one jump ahead, until that critical moment. Note as well that Greyface was coming in hard at that point, homing in every use of awareness by Cosmonaut or by Havsmanin, which happened in session 1 for Havsmanin, twice here. Every one of those allowed Greyface to home in, because Greyface has one kind of awareness, but not local awareness. Needed to have that special effect firing off to know where to go, where his target was. And so on the second one, was able to come in hard. And so imagine what if Cosmonaut had been flashed and been taking the destructive knockout damage from La Flecha Dorada's darts at that moment. Greyface would have annihilated him. So it was a lot of contingent things happened in there. The fact that perception check or the awareness check was able to let Havsmanin know where the second one, when she was like wrapped up in the bicycle shed. I mean, she could have just pot shot at him, indefinitely. He would have no idea where it was coming from, except that last second direction from Cosmonaut before he got hammered by Greyface. And so lots of things going on there. The obvious, plot thing of Cosmonaut getting whisked away into the psycho dimensions because he chose to evade with dexterity. Note that he was really sucking wind on knockout and endurance. Out of endurance, sucking wind on knockout, knowing that any action he took was going to be actually driving him quite close to collapsing. And so instead of going desolid and risking, basically could have gone to solid, but he would have been just flat out, at that point. And he didn't want to risk whatever may have occurred under those circumstances. So anyway, it was a really bit of a nosebleed of decision making and what the dice rolls did in terms of how much endurance he was going, knockout, he was going to take. And it was a nice, what you might call a sort of a screw down of the mechanics, putting you into the difficulties of that decision, and the dexterity roll fails, and into the vortex he goes. So that's occurring. Now, I will say one last thing about this, which is that I was getting real tired. The kind of fascination, that the players have with how these mechanics work, and the many, many questions. I'm trying to manage the questions. Cognitively, I don't deal well with barrage. And so I'm really okay, this is the time for questions, and this isn't. And it may sound like I'm real, dictatorial about that, but I just have to keep some focus on this because I'm playing and I'm teaching, and it's a demanding moment for me. So there's that. But as I got more and more tired, I really fell down on some issues that are very important to me personally. And so I was watching the last half hour of that and just shaking my head and going, oh, look at you, just below it. I mean, totally model wrongness. What am I talking about? First of all, La Flecha Dorada, who's Irinu Vasquez, from northwestern Venezuela, and one of the indigenous people there, and I looked up all these different tribes and groups and stuff and got the info. And so I had actually a pretty good background for the character and the situations, the crisscrossing situations, the brainwashing and the struggling to rebel and all that stuff is going on, the inability to speak, while being brainwashed and stuff like that, or while that was in play. The semi-mystical nature, of their powers, they're being in touch with sort of this ecological spirit situation. There's a reason why she was sticking, to the waters and to the parks in Goteborg, and the fact, she's being used basically. There's more to come in the story about like what she was doing in Gothenburg. Why would they actually, have her over there in Sweden of all places? But the fact is that I had to play her breaking down, and I had to deal with the fact that the player character that I'm talking about did not understand, didn't even know her language existed, much less anything about it. And and so basically I failed to play her character. I had to describe it more or less abstractly in some way that I hoped had some impact, but I just didn't have in me the depth of being able to portray this character. And so I felt like she came off as objectified rather than personified once that moment occurred, when the psychological situations all kind of switched up and the brainwashing part melted down, and then the other one was able to, temporarily, sometimes able to rebel, is able to come forward. And so I really wish I could have done a little bit more with that. But I was pretty wiped out. The other one is, again, pure fatigue. My brain is going off, and I was thinking, all right, so Sandir, he's from Suriname, but his parents are actually of Indian descent, from India, and so the name kind of went weird in my head, and it just turned into Sandeep for some reason. And again, that's terrible. Here you are dealing with a name that's not from my own native culture, and then you get it like mixed up and you say the wrong name. And it's just, I'm deeply unhappy with having done that. And so, I'm looking at that and I'm just like hand on my face in shame. It's like, look at you objectify and misuse these characters that you've made up, and you have an honor-bound responsibility to depict, in line with who they are, right? This is important. And so personal pledge, right? Let's get this shit straight. Let's not do that anymore. And part of it is going to have to make sure about keeping the fatigue properly, in check while we play and energize each other and make sure that cognitively I'm not wearing out. So, okay, that was it for that bit, and hope you thought it was kind of fun. There's more to come, believe me. Another session is in the can. I'm trying to edit it up now. We're playing again this week, and I think that we will have plenty to work with. The now, my document, the now just proliferated after this session in particular. So, take care. Thank you very much for listening.